Salvete discipuli. In today's tutorial lesson, we will read the account of when Barbalus invites Quintus to go on a crocodile hunt. It is an inherently dangerous thing to go on a crocodile hunt in the ancient world. Let's see how this goes. Okay, in this video, I'm going to highlight a few select sentences from the story Venatio of Unit 2. There is a story entitled Venatio in Unit 1, but this Venatio is about a crocodile hunt. Before we get to the portion that you might have been translating using our worksheet, I'm going to first give you some select sentences from part 1 of the story just to kind of set the stage. Then when we get to part 2 of the story, I'm not going to highlight the entire story, just a few sentences that contain some particularly challenging word order issues and some new grammar that I would like to highlight for you. So, first off, so that you know what's going on. Barbalus me ad venatione invitavit. Barbalus invited me to a hunt. Mane villicum formionem cum multis servis emissit. Early in the morning, he sent the slave manager Formio with many slaves. Ubi e villa disce debamus, astrologus Barbili commotus ad nos cucurrit. When we were leaving the house, the astrologer of Barbalus, disturbed, ran to us. Okay, so Barbili here is genitive singular. And that's right, Barbalus is so rich that he actually has a slave whose job is to be his astrologer. Cur e villa hodie exire vis, clamavit astrologus. Why do you want to leave the house today? Shouted the astrologer. Remember, the word vis is the highly irregular second-person singular form of volo. Okay, so vis means you want. Cur vis, why do you want? It completes its action with an infinitive. Why do you want to leave? We use the preposition a here, so literally exire means to go, ire ex, to go out of, and it's almost redundant in English. We wouldn't want to say to go out of the house, but in Latin, we repeat the preposition here. Ad praedium meum iter facimus, Barbalus respondit. We make a journey to my estate, responded Barbalus. This idiom here is very common, so get to know this idiom. The noun iter means journey, okay? The plural is itinera, from which we get like the word itinerary, okay? An itinerary is a list of the places that you're going to go to on a journey. So the idiom iter facere, literally to make a journey, you could actually, if you wanted, you could even just translate that as we journey, okay? So we make a journey or we journey to my estate. Sed domine, inquit astrologus, immemor es periculosum est tibi hodie e villa exire quod hodie sol arieti apropinquat. But Lord, said the astrologer, you are forgetful. Now, immemor literally is not not remembering, okay? But in English, we don't say not remembering, we say forgetful. It is dangerous for you to go out of the house today because, why? Today the sun approaches Aries, okay? Meaning the constellation, where the constellation Aries would be in the sky. Now this is dative. Arieti is dative of a third declension noun. The verb apropinquat, which means to approach or to draw near to something, takes a dative object. So the astrologer says, today's not the day to go on a journey or to leave the house. It's dangerous. And the reason is, as he just said, the sun is entering or approaching Aries. Ubi hoc audivi astrologum derisi. When I heard this, I made fun of the astrologer. And the I here is Quintus. Okay, remember, Quintus is talking to Cogidubnus back in Britannia. He's telling Cogidubnus all these stories about what he did when he was in the area of Alexandria. So remember, the I on a perfect tense verb, I is I did the action. So audivi, I heard. Derisi, I made fun of. Barbalus quamquam ei credebat, me offendere nolebat. Barbalus, although he was trusting him, was not wanting to offend me. Okay, so ei is the dative of the demonstrative is ea id. So credebat, this verb takes a dative object, just like apropinquat in the previous sentence did. Now we're going to learn in an upcoming story why Barbalus has reason to trust this astrologer, but because he doesn't want to offend Quintus, he's not going to follow the advice of the astrologer. Astrologus igitur ubi domino persuadere non potuit, amuletum quod Chaldeii fecerant ei dedit. The astrologer, therefore, when he was not able to persuade the master, gave to him an amulet which Chaldeans had made. Okay, so some grammatical things worth noting here. Domino is dative because the verb persuadere, like apropinquat that we've seen, like credebat, this verb also takes a dative object. Okay, so when he was not able, potuit, to persuade the master. Now, amuletum is the direct object of dated. Okay, so he gave an amulet, ei, to him. Then we have this relative clause. Because amuletum is a neuter noun, quod here does not mean because. Quod means which. It is the neuter singular relative. Now, Chaldeii, these were some people, like they were also understood to be very powerful astrologers living in the area of modern-day Iraq. There are, in fact, still, based near Mosul, Iraq, a population of people who call themselves the Chaldeans. Unfortunately, there are more Chaldeans living in America now than there are in Iraq. Their population was decimated by ISIS when ISIS took control of Mosul some years back. Fecerant is pluperfect tense, so had made. Per partem praedii flumenilus leniter fluebat. Through part of the estate, the Nile River was gently flowing. Ubi illuc advenimus, multos servos vidimus collectos. When we arrived there, now illuc literally means like to that place, okay? So that's why we say when we arrived there, but to there, understood. We saw many slaves collected, okay? Collectos is the past participle, and we're going to be studying those. We have studied those in the past, but we're going to be seeing those a lot more frequently in our reading. In hac multitudine servorum erant non nulli Aethiopes, qui hastas in manibus tenebant. In this crowd of slaves there were some Ethiopians who were holding spears in their hands. Now, nulli would mean none. Non means not. So not none is the way Latin says some. Okay, so non nulli, not none Ethiopians, meaning some Ethiopians. Okay, so as I said earlier, we are now going to study just some select sentences from the remainder of this story. You had the opportunity to translate the whole story, but now these sentences in particular, what you're going to notice is word order is going off the rails. Also, the length of these sentences is going to become quite challenging as a result of multiple embedded clauses. So, tum formio nos ad ripam fluminis duxit, ubi scaphae, quas comparaverat deligatae erant. Then formio. What did formio do? Duxit. He led. Who did he lead? Us. Nos is the direct object of duxit, but this sentence is just getting started. He led us where? Ad ripam, to the bank. To the bank of what? To the bank of the river. This is genitive singular of the neuter noun flumen. The plural is flumina. Okay, so fluminis, the genitive singular, the bank of the river. Where, ubi, where scaphae, where boats. Okay, now this is going to be the end of the sentence. This is going to describe that the boats were like tied up, but before we get there, we're going to have a clause that describes more about the boats. These are the scaphae quas, which comparaverat, which he had acquired. Okay, pluperfect tense verb, which he had acquired, were tied up. Deligitae erant. Okay, so again, this is a past participle, meaning sometimes past participles, they seem almost like adjectives, and we have in fact learned some past participles already that were presented to you as if they were adjectives. Now we're going to expand that dramatically into a lot more past participles. So they are described as being of the condition of tied up. Fluminis again, genitive. Okay, so now when you see grammatical items presented to you in this video, do take notes. Those are the things that you are going to be questioned on when you have a Socrative quiz. So know that fluminis is genitive. Know that duxit is perfect tense. Know that quas is the accusative plural. Okay, it's the accusative plural of the relative pronoun. Comparaverat, it is pluperfect tense. Erant is imperfect tense. Now notice, okay, we form the pluperfect by putting the forms of the imperfect on what we call the perfect stem of the verb. Comparau here is the perfect stem. We put imperfect tense verbs on there to produce the pluperfect tense. Okay. Postquam scaphas conscendimus ad paludem in qua crocodile latebant caute navigavimus. Okay, after we boarded the boats. Okay, so conscendimus, to get on like some type of a vehicle. In this case, to board the boats. Now, what's following here, if we were to translate this word for word, it's not going to make any sense. Okay, we are going to have, once again, we have an embedded relative clause inside what really is the rest of this sentence. Okay, so we're going to run all the way to the verb. Navigavimus, we sailed. Okay, where did we sail? How did we sail? Cautiously. Ad paludem. Okay, so I've actually now taken pieces of this. We sailed cautiously. Where did we sail cautiously? Ad paludem, to the swamp. Now we're going to have a relative clause embedded inside the remainder of that sentence. It is the swamp in qua, in which once crocodili, the crocodiles, latebant, were lying hidden. Okay, so things that you need to know grammatically. In qua. This is the preposition in plus the ablative case. Okay, in qua, in plus ablative. Crocodili, know that that is nominative plural. Okay, on a second declension noun, crocodili, that I is a nominative plural. Latebant, imperfect tense. Ubi paludi apropinquavimus, aqua limosior fiebat, harundinesque densiores. When we approached, okay? So that verb again is going to take a dative object. Paludi is the dative of a third declension. When we approached the swamp, the water, aqua, was becoming, fiebat, okay? What was it becoming? Limosior. It was becoming muddier. This ending, the IOR, is the comparative ending, okay? So, limosus, muddy, limosior, muddier. Now, we are going to assume the verb fiebat again in the next clause. Que means and, okay? So, even though this is singular, aqua, okay, even though that's singular, and the verb fiebat is also singular because aqua is singular, we are going to assume a plural version of it for the next clause, okay? And harundines, okay, the reeds, harundinesque, they were becoming, understood, densiores, thicker. So know this, know that paludi is dative. It's dative because the verb apropinquavimus takes a dative. Postquam ad mediam paludem navigavimus, barbulus formioni signum dedit. After we sailed where? Ad mediam paludem, to the middle of the swamp. What did Barbulus do? Barbulus gave the signal. To whom did he give the signal? To Formio. Know that ad mediam paludem, know that that is accusative following ad. Both words are accusative. So in English, we say like the middle of something. In Latin, we don't use like a genitive. In Latin, the adjective mediam, which is modifying that noun, that together, those two are both accusative, meaning to the middle of something. Formioni, know that that is dative. Magna erat fortitudo crocodilorum, major tamen peritia Aethiopum. Okay, so the strength, fortitudo, what was it? The strength, crocodilorum, genitive plural. The strength of the crocodiles, erat magna, was great. Okay, so the Latin literally says, great was the strength of the crocodiles. Now, that would actually still make sense in English. It might even be poetic. Okay, but you can feel free to change the word order of that when you translate. The strength of the crocodiles was great, but now we are going to assume once again this verb erat, okay, is going to be assumed in this next clause. Okay, so great was the strength of the crocodiles. Peritia, the skill of the Ethiopians. Okay, so also genitive plural endings here. Okay, the skill of the Ethiopians, tamen, however, understood was greater, major. Okay, so major is the comparative of magnus, magna, magnum. Okay, major. So was greater. So know the following. Fortitudo is feminine. Okay, so that noun is feminine, and that's the reason why magna is a feminine adjective describing it. Magna is also feminine. Crocodilorum is genitive plural. Know that. Know that Aethiopum is also genitive plural, by the way. Okay. Formio dominum vocabat, quod hippopotamus quem Aethiopes e palude excitaverant scapham barbili everterat. Okay, this is not good, people. Look what's happening. Formio was calling the master. Why? Because a hippopotamus quem, which. The Ethiopians had awoken, exkitawerant. Where had they awoken it from? E palude, from the marsh. What did it do? It had overturned a verterat, the boat of Barbalus. Okay? Be aware, by the way, more humans are killed every year by a hippopotamus than by any other animal. Okay, they are extremely dangerous animals. Okay, so here's some grammatical points to know from this. And by the way, again, take note, we've got this embedded relative clause here is actually embedded kind of inside a whole nother clause. Okay, so Formio was calling the master. Why? Because of all this. Because hippopotamus had done something. So the word hippopotamus here is actually the subject of the verb everterat. Okay, so this is a very complex sentence. Know that a palude, that is ablative. You always have ablative with the preposition a. It's a before a consonant. It's x before a vowel. Know that barbili is genitive singular. Now, quamquam ad barbilum et ad servos qui in aqua natabant celeriter navigavimus, crocodili iam eos circum venerant. Although we sailed. So notice, I'm running all the way down here from my main verb, okay? This sentence is that complicated. This is why you have to read a whole sentence through. You don't just start translating. So, although to Barbalus and to the slaves who, you like think, what's going on? So this makes sense only when we run to that verb. So although we sailed quickly, celeriter, to Barbalus. Okay, so now we run back up there. And notice again, we are going to have an embedded relative clause here before we get to the next part of the sentence. Although we sailed quickly to Barbalus, et ad servos, and to the slaves, who, this is referring to Barbalus and the slaves, who natabant, were swimming in aqua, in the water. What had the crocodiles already done, although we sailed to them who were doing that? The crocodiles, jam already, circum venerant, had surrounded them. Eos is accusative plural. Okay, so grammatically, know the following. Crocodili is nominative plural. Eos is accusative plural. Hasta quam servus emiserat, umerum barbili percusserat. A spear which a slave had thrown had struck the shoulder of Barbalus. Okay? So the main sentence here is, again, the spear had struck the shoulder of Barbalus. What kind of a spear? A spear quam, which the slave had thrown. So know that quam is accusative singular. It's the accusative singular relative. Hasta is its antecedent. Barbalus a servo suo graviter vulneratus erat. Barbalus was. What was he? He was seriously, graviter, he was seriously wounded. By whom was he seriously wounded? We use the preposition a. It's a before a consonant. It's ab before a vowel. Okay? We use that preposition to express agency. Okay, so when something is done by someone, that's the preposition we're going to use. So Barbalus was seriously wounded by his slave, understood his own slave. So grammatical things to know. A servo suo. This is ablative. You always have ablative after that preposition, a or ab. Vulneratus. Okay, now we first learned that as an adjective meaning wounded, but now it's time to learn. This is known as a past participle. Okay, when you are given a dictionary form of an active verb, there are going to be four what we call principal parts. The fourth principal part is the past participle. So if the verb means to wound, the past participle means wounded or having been wounded.